I'm a 33-year-old office worker. My husband, Tony, is 5 years older and we've been married for 7 years. Currently, due to certain circumstances, I live with my mother. Please ask me how I ended up in this situation. Going back 2 years, Tony and I built a house. At the time, Tony had just switched jobs and we didn't have much in the way of savings or income. Tony's previous job was at a major corporation. However, he suffered from insidious harassment from his boss, leading to sleepless nights and, a few months later, he became unable to go to work. He consulted a psychiatrist and took a leave of absence for about 3 months, but with no signs of recovery, he ultimately resigned. After that, we managed to live on my salary alone. Tony, unemployed for 2 months, began to regain his energy. He started eating well and sleeping again, and his psychiatrist was happy about his speedy recovery. My positive, beloved Tony was back. From there, he vigorously searched for a job. His experience at a major corporation was an advantage, but due to his reason for resignation being mental health, finding a new job wasn't easy. During this time, we found a small company that needed him. His salary was about 2/3 of what he used to earn, but seeing his eyes shine as he said, "It's way better than being jobless. Let's do this," made me happy. Moreover, it was in the field he wanted. We wanted to have children, but it was clear that life would become difficult if I stopped working. As a result, and because I also love my job, we gave up on having children. At the time, we didn't think about building a house as it was just the two of us. However, a cloud overshadowed our peaceful life. My mother, Karen, became paralyzed due to a traffic accident and had to live in a wheelchair. Since my father passed away when I was in middle school, Karen had been living alone. Our mother-in-law home was an old house. It was far from being wheelchair-friendly with many steps. Tony then suggested, "I'm worried, let's live together." Karen and I were surprised, but I love this kind of unexpected kindness from Tony. Tony had just changed jobs, so we didn't know what would happen, but we decided to apply for a mortgage. As expected, it was difficult to get a loan due to the short length of his current employment. But we possessed something unbeatable: determination and an unbreakable spirit, our greatest strengths. We persisted, trying out a 5th mortgage company. It was indeed difficult to get Tony's loan approved, but the loan officer proposed various options to us. We took a chance on one of these proposals, and it led to a successful loan approval. We finally decided to buy our own home. I had always dreamt of living in a house filled with the scent of wood. Thick, exposed wooden beams on the ceiling, customized storage spaces designed just for us. A kitchen adjusted to my short stature, and spacious flooring made of cypress. Of course, it is a barrier-free single-story house. The house is perfect for comfortable living in a wheelchair. We couldn't wait for it to be completed and made a daily routine of visiting the construction site. Then our painstakingly designed dream home was finished. It has a large yard where my mother, who had become reluctant to go out, can now enjoy sunbathing. However, there was one dissatisfaction. The land on which we built was given to us by Tony's grandfather. Tony's mother-in-law wasn't particularly rich, but his grandfather adored him. But then, Tony's grandfather was suddenly diagnosed with cancer. Upon learning of his illness, he began to distribute his assets. Tony received the largest plot of land, as per his grandfather's wishes. It felt like winning the lottery, but there was a major catch. The land was just a 5-minute walk from Tony's mother-in-law home. When we told them that my mother would be moving in with us, Tony's sister laughed and said, "Why is your mother moving in too? How shameless is your mother-in-law? I knew marrying a strange woman like you would cause trouble." Tony's mother also snidely remarked, "Isn't it awful for my son to be dragged into caring for the elderly? Aren't you some kind of curse?" Even during these times, Tony defended my mother and me, saying, "It's the land that Grandpa gave me. There's no reason for anyone to complain." Tony's mother and sister are quite malicious, almost world-class. I think it's a miracle that such a kind person like Tony was raised in that mother-in-law. To me, he's like a beautiful lotus flower blooming out of the mud. Tony always said about his family, "I have 2 great examples of what not to be at home." But I'm sure the reason Tony's grandfather gave us this land was probably because he wanted us to look after his mother in her old age. He also had other properties and gave Tony's sister a parking lot located 10 minutes walk from their mother-in-law home. In terms of size, it's about 2/3 of the land that Tony received. However, it already has a full parking contract, so the monthly parking lot income is significant. Personally, I would have preferred that. But you can't complain about a gift. It is something to be grateful for. In reality, thanks to my GIL, we were able to build a house. Having no cost for the land and being able to use it as collateral for a loan made a big difference. Once the house was completed, we invited my mother-in-law and sister-in-law's mother-in-law. However, during construction, we heard from the builders that they had come to see the house several times without our permission. They arrived an hour and a half later than the agreed time without any apology. Pardon our intrusion. This is kind of like Grandpa's house too, so it's kind of like our house as well. Oh, such a nice house. The smell of wood is nice, no need for air fresheners, said my sister-in-law as she waltzed in. Even though her shoes were muddy because of the rain, she didn't mind at all and went straight into our newly built house. Her husband also walked around in muddy shoes, ignoring the slippers we had prepared. When I urged, "We have slippers available if you'd like to wear them," my sister-in-law laughed and replied, "It's such a hassle, you can just wipe the floor." From the get-go, the atmosphere was terrible. And, of course, they came empty-handed. After touring the rooms, they reached my mother's room. My mother's room is the most spacious and has the best sunlight. At my mother's request, we designed it like a duplex, complete with a kitchen. It's a room like a second living area. Seeing this, my mother-in-law said, "I'm fine with this room. I want to live here." An absurd thing to say. Furthermore, my mother-in-law told my mother, "You were fortunate to have that accident, weren't you? Thanks to being paraplegic, you've moved from that old shack to such a nice house. Isn't it a turn of fortune?" My mother said nothing, but she looked so sad. Inside, I was boiling over with anger. But before I could respond, Tony spoke up. "What did you just say? There are things you can and can't say to people. It makes me question your humanity. I don't even want to think that you're part of my mother-in-law. You're the worst. Apologize now," Tony said in a strong tone. Whether they found this amusing or not, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law glared at me. Then my sister-in-law confronted Tony with a heated look. "What? What's this all about? That's a total turn off. It's not cool to invite people and then treat them like that. Just because you built a house doesn't mean you can act all high and mighty." The mother-in-law joined in, too. "Anyway, my son went off the rails because he ended up with a wife like you. You are a jinx." Tony didn't stay sister-in-law either. "Enough is enough. This mess started because of your rude remarks. You were saying that the accident was a good thing, and calling my wife a jinx. I won't forgive you for that." The mother-in-law and sister-in-law looked frustrated by Tony's strong rebuttal. Then, my mother, who had been watching the whole scene, apologized with a regretful look. "It's okay. I'm living together with them because I actually had an accident, and it's true that I was able to live in this beautiful house from a rundown one. Your son has always been kind to me. Thank you." Perhaps feeling guilty, the mother-in-law and sister-in-law left, shooting me a nasty look. My mother then apologized to Tony. "I'm sorry. I must have upset your mother and sisters. I'm sorry I ruined the mood on the day of the housewarming party because of me." Tony also said, "No, I should be the one apologizing. It's embarrassing. They really lack decency. I'm really sorry. But I am happy to be living with you. Please understand that." With that, my mother started to tear up. Since it's near Tony's parents' house, the neighbors are all people we know. They all know Tony since he was a child, so they're very kind to us. 4 months have passed since that mess. When we were finally getting used to our new home, and my mother started to smother-in-law more, an incident occurred. I received a call from home while I was at work. We rarely get calls from home, so it startled me. My bad feeling came true. My mother, unable to hide her agitation, called me. "It's awful. Tony collapsed at work." I, too, was agitated by the serious tone. I immediately consulted with my boss and headed to the hospital. On the way, I tried to remain calm by unconsciously imagining positive scenarios like, "When I get to the hospital, he'll be all right," and joking around to keep me in good spirits. But when I arrived at the hospital, I couldn't believe my eyes. My husband, who was supposed to have gone to work cheerfully after eating breakfast as usual. We were supposed to have a movie date this weekend. But now, what I see is him, with countless tubes connected to his body. I was completely lost. The doctor said, "He's in a very dangerous condition. Even if he survives, we don't know if he will regain consciousness." I felt as if I was in a movie, and I couldn't even cry. I prayed fervently. Yet, my prayers went unanswered. My husband, Tony, passed away just like that. In my state of shock, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law showed up, as expected. When they heard that Tony had passed away, my sister-in-law aggressively asked, "Did you poison him or something? Were you after his life insurance money? Did you poison him or something? Were you after his life insurance money?" Following suit, my mother-in-law cornered me too. "Bad things always happen when you're around. Just like your mother. You really are a jinx." I was so sad, I couldn't speak. Just then, my mother arrived in a caregiver's taxi. She was crying at the circumstances of Tony's death. Seeing my mother's tears, I was finally able to cry as well. As the two of us sobbed loudly, my mother-in-law said, "Oh, stop it. Can you quit the fake crying? My son changed after meeting you too. Now that my son is gone, I don't want to see your faces ever again. Don't appear before us again." And then she left the hospital. From there, we had a funeral director come in and arrange the schedule for the funeral. We headed to the funeral home. Tony's cause of death was a subarachnoid hemorrhage. I can't believe it, he was fine until morning. When I informed my mother-in-law about the funeral schedule, she replied unexpectedly, "He always sided with you too, so I won't attend the funeral. My daughter won't come either." Many people from Tony's company and his friends attended the viewing. However, neither my mother-in-law nor my sister-in-law and her husband were present. It's unbelievable, but maybe that's just the kind of people they were. Many people attended the funeral too, and I could tell that Tony was loved by many. There were many who shed tears for his untimely death. I was glad to spend the whole day with them who sincerely miss my husband. I had received an email from my mother-in-law after Tony's death. But its content was inappropriate, so I didn't reply. The email was asking about the amount of life insurance money. She kept emailing because I hadn't replied, and eventually said, "I have a right to receive it." I wasn't in a position to deal with it, so I ignored it. When we arrived at our house, I saw light seeping out of the room. My mother, Karen, looked puzzled and said, "That's strange. I thought we turned off all the lights. Maybe I forgot to turn it off because I was too agitated." I replied, "That's all right. It's only natural to be upset given the situation," and unlocked the door to our house. Sure enough, we could hear the sound of a TV coming from inside. Definitely weird. My mom and I exchanged glances, then fearfully entered the room. There, sitting in the room, were my sister-in-law and her husband. "What are you doing?" I was so surprised that I couldn't even raise my voice. The living room was filled with unfamiliar furniture and boxes. We had absolutely no clue what was happening. My sister-in-law then said, "Why did you just barge in here?" "Well, it's your first time, so I'll let you off the hook. We're taking this house. We sold your stuff, so leave." My mother and I were utterly stunned. We had no idea what was going on. When I asked, "Where did our stuff and furniture go?" she nonchalantly replied, "We had a resale company come today and they took everything. You had some pretty good furniture. We got a good price for it. We bought this furniture with that money. Who wants furniture that a dead person used? It's bad luck, isn't it? I'm the type to care about such things. Your stuff is packed in these boxes. I don't know if you're minimalists or just poor, but it was a relief that you had so few things." The furniture was carefully chosen by my husband. I absolutely couldn't forgive them. My mom was also furious, her face turning beet red, but she was too shocked to reply. I immediately called the resale company. After explaining the situation, they agreed to treat the items as stolen and return them. Honestly, now that my husband is gone, I want nothing to do with his mother-in-law. But I do feel a desire to stay in the house filled with memories of him. As I was struggling with these feelings, my mother said to me in a voice only I could hear,
"What do you think Tony would say if you were here now? Maybe he'd say we should leave?"
I'm sure that's true. Tony always used to say, "It's worth spending time with people who understand you. But there are also people who just won't get it, no matter how much you explain. It's a waste of time dealing with those low-level aliens." He was in fact talking about his mother and sister. I can see it clearly now. If we continue to live here, his mother-in-law and relatives will keep interfering. I impulsively signed a lease on an accessible apartment. My mother was taken aback by my decisiveness. I asked the resale company to keep the furniture for a few days, and it was moved to the new apartment 3 days later. In exchange for moving out, I made the mother-in-law and sister-in-law promise to cut ties with us. And so, a new life began with just my mother and me in the apartment. It seems that Tony had so many life insurance policies it was almost obsessive. Tony often joked, always with a mother-in-law, "When I die, you guys will be rich." True to his word, my husband left my mother and me enough money to be comfortable for the rest of our lives. He was unable to secure a mortgage when we bought the house. So, being an employee at a major corporation, I purchased the house under my name. I ensured that, even if something happened to Tony first, I certainly wasn't stupid enough to continue paying a mortgage for a house I wouldn't live in. Under the original contract, the house would be auctioned off if the mortgage wasn't paid for 3 months. In the hustle and bustle of life, 3 months passed in a flash. Then, I received a barrage of calls from my sister-in-law, Jessica, with astounding fury. My call history was filled with Jessica and my mother-in-law, Linda. "What the heck? This is seriously scary. It's like something out of a horror movie." I thought it was a little horror movie. Since they were being incredibly persistent, I picked up the phone only to find out they were furious that the house was being sold. Apparently, when they returned home, they were unable to get in, and there was a seizure notice. Jessica and her husband moved out of the apartment they had been living in since Tony passed away. Jessica had also quit her job. I suggested they move back to their parents' house since they were panicking about suddenly being homeless. To my surprise, Linda had become so involved in gambling that she couldn't keep up and had sold her own house. It seems they have been living together for the past 2 months. From what I hear, they even sold their primary source of income, a parking lot in front of the train station, a long time ago. Now, Linda and Jessica's mother-in-law are completely homeless. When Linda said, "I'm sorry for everything. Let's get along. Can you lend me some money, please?" I replied, "I think it's best if you stay away since I'm a jinx. We're strangers now that we've severed ties." Linda fell sister-in-law and after mumbling a week. In my mind, I was laughing, thinking, who's the real bad luck charm here? Then, when I said, "I won't lend you a single cent," Jessica, who had been listening to the conversation next to Linda, shouted, "You devil! Bring us the money right now." "Hee, I'm a devil and bad luck, so I'm going to hang up now," I replied and ended the call. In truth, I had a lawyer involved for the past 3 months, pushing for the auction of the house. I thought it was an unusual case, but apparently, it's not that uncommon. The house was sold without any major trouble, allowing our mother-in-law a moment of respite. We planned to find a new home with the money Tony left us. Given it's just my mother and I, we don't need a big house. We'd rather prioritize security as 2 women living together. And so, I chose a condominium with minimal noise disturbance. I remember something my husband always said when we built our home. People can get energy from the sun. So let's create a place where mother-in-law can enjoy her hobby of reading in the garden without feeling self-conscious. With those words, he had made a spacious courtyard for her. So, I looked for a condo with a large balcony where she could enjoy her coffee and read. It's smaller than our previous home, but the room is spacious enough to house the furniture my husband proudly chose. The piece of land that was gifted to us by Tony's grandfather was expansive, and the house sold for more than expected. With that money, I bought a rather luxurious condominium. The security is top-notch, so my worrywart husband would surely rest easy. And I heard rumors about my in-laws' mother-in-law. Our old neighbors were worried about my sister-in-law's mother-in-law suddenly moving in. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law's mother-in-law were left homeless. They even tried to borrow money from neighbors. In the end, they couldn't borrow anything and ended up living in public housing after consulting with the community. But they're stubborn people, so it seems the trouble never ends. From what I've heard, they caused a commotion by having a barbecue on their small balcony. Their thoughtless actions must have shocked the locals. And whether it's due to a lack of money or just frustration, they seem to have loud arguments every night. People are saying they're causing such a racket that it sounds like things are being thrown around. My sister-in-law's husband left a long time ago, and now it's just her and mother-in-law living together. It's quite the contrast to my peaceful life with my mother, although we're both two-member households. It seems that the neighbors are banding together to try and get this nuisance mother-in-law evicted. No matter where you go, if you're a nuisance, people won't welcome you. What goes around comes around. I just want to live peacefully and quietly, estranged from my embarrassing mother-in-law. I believe that Tony is surely watching over us. From now on, I plan to live my life without causing trouble to others, and do my best to live not just for myself, but for Tony as well. You, a low-educated commoner, are not needed in our family. Victoria and Stella, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, glared at me as they said this. If that's their attitude, I have my own plans. Just you wait and see. My name is Christina, 35 years old. I've always been shy about love due to my focus on work, but a year ago, I met Hilton through a friend and started dating him. Just last month, he proposed. I had long given up on the idea of a normal happiness like marriage, but Hilton, my age, was so understanding. He never complained about my work-centric life and always watched over me kindly, so I accepted his proposal without hesitation. We're planning to have the wedding in 6 months, and I'm currently in the midst of dieting. Usually glued to my computer from morning to night, I wasn't overweight, but I was out of shape due to a lack of exercise. I was working hard to tone up. The reason was simple, for the wedding. Even though I've been a career woman until now, I'm still a woman. I wanted to wear my wedding dress, likely a once-in-a-lifetime event, in the best shape of my life. Though it felt a bit extravagant, I hired a personal trainer and started going to the gym every morning before work. Despite being busy with work, Hilton and I were making wedding preparations together and everything was going smoothly. Last week, I introduced Hilton to my parents, and next weekend, Hilton was planning to introduce me to his parents. But unexpectedly, I ran into Victoria the other day. I was shopping for a dress at Macy's in New York to wear to a family meeting with Hilton's side. I usually decide on my clothes alone, but since I was meeting my in-laws, I thought I'd include Hilton's opinion and went shopping together. Then, "Oh, Hilton?" I turned around when someone suddenly called out and saw an elegantly dressed elderly woman standing there. "It is you, Hilton." "Huh? Mom? What are you doing here?" "Just shopping, as usual." "Oh? And who is this young lady?" "Ah, I'm Christina. I'm in a good relationship with Hilton. Nice to meet you." "Oh my, you must be his girlfriend." "Nice to meet you too. I'm Hilton's mother, Victoria." I was surprised by the sudden encounter, but Victoria was a very kind and elegant lady. No wonder, since Hilton comes from a long line of doctors and his family is quite renowned locally. Hilton is also a doctor, though still practicing. "Oh dear, this is a problem." "What's the problem?" "Well, the thing is, we've decided to get married." "What? Really? You should have said that sooner." "I told you I was going back home next week, right? I plan to take Christina with me for a family meeting. We already had one with Christina's family." Victoria, understandably, was taken aback, but then she smiled warmly. "That's wonderful news." That's what he said. Unexpectedly, I felt reassured by Victoria's friendly and bright demeanor. But that was short-lived. Soon after, I would come to see her true nature. Despite it being our first meeting, Victoria wanted to exchange contact information with me. Looking uncertainly at Hilton, he said, "Well, we'd exchange it eventually. It's fate, I suppose." He said that, so. Sorry for the odd order, but. With that, I exchanged phone numbers with Victoria. I bought the dress I wanted and then parted ways with Hilton, each of us heading home. Then, as if timed perfectly, my mobile phone rang. To my surprise, it was Victoria. Christina? Victoria, thank you so much for today." We bumped into each other, quite a surprise. "Thanks for giving me your contact on such short notice." "No, thank you." "You know, about coming to my house next week?" "Yes, looking forward to it." "Well, about that, I have something I want to talk about. Can we meet before then?" With Hilton?" No, just the two of us." I was quite surprised by the sudden request, but I couldn't refuse due to our relationship. We agreed to meet during a weekday and then ended the call. I felt uneasy, almost creepy, and unpleasant. A few days later, I went to the cafe where we were meeting, and Victoria was already there, waiting. "Sorry to keep you waiting." Nowadays, it's common courtesy not to keep your elders waiting. I'm sorry." An unexpected jab. My unease only grew. Anyway, I was really surprised the other day. "I'm sorry for the surprise. The family meeting ran late." Well, normally, I'd attend a family meeting first if I were marrying into a family. That was more than a jab. With a clearly malicious tone, Victoria continued. "Is it the other way around these days? Recently, my friends are lamenting that their sons and daughter-in-laws got taken by their in-laws." "I'm so sorry." "Well, it's okay. By the way, do you always shop in that area?" "Oh, no, I rarely go downtown." "Right, you stood out. I thought, what's this country-looking girl doing here?" Then I saw Hilton and was shocked. Did I stand out? What a rude person. I regretted thinking even for a moment that Victoria was a nice person. You're not aware? Look, if you want to be my daughter-in-law, you should be more conscious of those around you. Yes, I see. Honestly, it was like picking a fight. I wasn't fashionably dressed like a model, but I wasn't out of place for New York's Macy's. It seemed like she just wanted to complain. But arguing back wouldn't help. I just said, "I'll try harder." I just answered. Then, "What kind of family are you from?" "My family? What do you mean by family?" Family is in family. What do your parents do? "Oh, Dad works a regular office job, and Mom's a homemaker." Oh my, what a surprise. Just ordinary people. Yes, we're ordinary, as you say. I felt insulted about my parents and answered with a hint of anger. Victoria kept questioning. "What about your education? Where did you go to college?" "Oh, I didn't go to college. I went to a makeup school." After I said that, Victoria sighed deeply. "You come from an unremarkable family and have no educational background. So, are you after Hilton for his money?" Such a blatantly rude question. I was stunned and asked, "What do you mean by that?" "What I mean is, did you approach Hilton for our family's wealth?" Every girl that comes around him is like that. Aren't you the same? No, I don't know about the past, but I was attracted to Hilton's personality. I wonder about that. I hope to properly discuss this at the family meeting next week. Okay. Not sure if you'll be accepted, though. When we met downtown, Victoria was smiling, maybe because Hilton was there. But once we were alone, she changed completely. I was dumbfounded by her attitude. The conversation continued with her looking down on me, and then we parted ways for the day. I never expected to be looked down on to this extent. On my way home, I was deeply troubled about how to build a relationship with Victoria. The next day, I received a call from an unknown number. Hello? Is this Christina? Yes, it is. It's Stella. Stella. Which Stella are you? What? I'm Hilton's sister. You're dating him, right? Trying to become his wife and you don't even know his family's names? Oh, my apologies. Hilton's sister? Sorry, I knew he had a sister, but I didn't know your name. I was completely taken aback by Stella's abrupt call. Got your number from Mom. Just as she said, an unsuitable woman for our family has arrived. Mom said so too. A country-looking, low-class girl trying to marry Hilton, it's causing a stir in the family. I see. If the mother was like that, so was the daughter. I was utterly shocked by their mean attitudes, so different from the kind Hilton. I see. Are you mocking me? If you want to marry Hilton, you better not go against me. You're coming to our family home next weekend, right? I'll be there to properly evaluate you. Evaluate? Yes, evaluate. You don't understand because you don't have an education? We, Mom and I, assess all the girlfriends Hilton brings. By the way, no one has passed yet. Failures don't even enter our house and go straight back home. Be prepared for that. Now I understood why Hilton rarely talked about his family. Given their attitude, he probably wanted to establish facts at my home first, then forcefully push through at his own home. He likely didn't tell me to avoid making me anxious. Also, bring a proper gift. I'll send you a message later about what to bring. It'll be around $300, not much. If I may say, I'll discuss the gift with Hilton. A $300 gift requirement was unheard of. Do you understand your position? You're asking to marry Hilton, and you're not trying to please us? Don't you understand that without a college education? You're supposedly working, but probably just a receptionist or something trivial, right? Without learning the norms of being a working adult, you don't understand. Remember your place. You're the one asking to be our daughter-in-law. Are you really even working properly? I couldn't let this go. I responded angrily. To return your words, I have been working properly since graduating from school. If that's the case, it's even more unbelievable. I worked at a major consulting firm until recently, but you wouldn't be of any use there. I tried to change the subject. Speaking of which, I heard from Hilton. You're changing jobs, right? Getting hired immediately as a mid-career professional, you must be talented. I flattered this arrogant woman, and as expected, she took the bait. Of course. And it's at a trendy IT company, too. The one with the makeup app and the slogan, "You can be anything." You've heard of it, right? I was intrigued, but I kept listening silently. I'll be in a programmer position. When you're at my level, you get hired instantly, even without programming experience. Wow, that's impressive. So, it's okay to be inexperienced? Well, they do prefer experienced people, but it's all about how you present yourself. Being a programmer is something you can do even without a college degree. I'd master it right after joining. But weren't you asked for a portfolio or something? You're incredibly serious, aren't you? I just paid a friend in science to make one for me. See? That's the smart way to do it. Well, I definitely don't have the nerve to lie in an interview like that. It's not a lie if you can do it later. That's what hiring is all about. After saying that, as if realizing she had spoken too much. Enough with the flattery, just make sure to bring a proper gift, she said and abruptly hung up. I was shocked by Stella's character, just like with Victoria. I couldn't keep quiet about this and told Hilton as soon as I got the gift request message from Stella. Seriously? They said that? Sorry for not telling you. I didn't want to make you anxious. I get it. Thanks. But what should we do? I'll handle the gift thing. Also, if Mom or Stella calls again, just ignore them. Hilton's words were very reassuring. He then immediately contacted Stella, rejecting the gift requirement. I braced for more communication from them, but nothing happened until the day of the family meeting arrived. Despite my nervousness, I optimistically hoped that Victoria and Stella wouldn't really refuse to let me in their house after their harsh words. But life isn't that sweet. At the entrance, Victoria and Stella were waiting like grizzly bears, complaining about the gift and refusing to let me in. Worse yet, Stella spilled coffee on my dress and even sprinkled salt on it. Even the typically calm Hilton was furious. "That's enough, Christina, let's go," he said. But I couldn't stay silent after being treated like this. "Hilton, sorry. I need to talk to Victoria and Stella. It might be awkward for you, so could you wait in the car for a bit?" Surprised by my determination, Hilton trusted me. "Okay," he said and stepped back. I turned to face the two women and asked firmly, "Why do I deserve such treatment? Your presence is not suitable for our family. Can you please stay away from Hilton from now on? What specifically makes me unsuitable?" "Fine, I'll tell you. What's with that dress? It's just some cheap thing from around the corner, right?" "No, it was tailor-made at a store I frequently visit. It's probably nothing special. So if it's not a fancy dress, it's okay to spill coffee on it?" "Yes, of course. Such a cheap thing, it's good you have a reason to throw it away." "If you're going to demand compensation, that's fine. I'll pay for it. Is that so? Anything else?" "Anything else? You ignored the gift, didn't you?" "That matter should have been settled by Hilton." "That's a discussion for our family. If you so badly want to be part of our family, that's a different matter, isn't it?" I was fed up. In the end, there was no real reason. They simply didn't like me. You see, complaining like that is the problem. As a daughter-in-law, you should quietly listen to what your husband's family says. "I see, so you always treat people this way?" "Of course. I teach Stella the same. Now she's a daughter I'm not ashamed to show anywhere. Not like you, a low-educated commoner. We don't need you in our family. That's the unanimous decision." "I see, got it." Saying this, I took a deep breath. Time to fight back. "Well, in that case, I cannot accept this." "Huh? We don't need your acceptance." Smiling at Stella, I said, "Stella, in that case, your job offer is revoked." "What? That's hilarious. What offer are you revoking?" "Your job offer. The one you said was secured at the company you were joining." "Huh? Why do you have anything to do with it?" Stella's face twitched. "It's my company. I decide, right?" "What? What are you talking about?" I intended to explain my job during the family meeting today, but unfortunately, there was no opportunity. The two were dumbstruck. They still hadn't grasped the situation. I continued to explain. The company where Stella got her job offer is the one I run. I developed an app while attending a makeup school, and it was a hit, so I started my own company. You keep calling me a commoner, but to be honest, I earn more than 5 times Hilton's income. That's impossible! Normally, I leave hiring decisions to HR, but this time I'll have a say. I have personal feelings due to this treatment. However, the main issue is Stella's false statements during her interview. Sadly, if a job offer is obtained through falsehoods, the company has the right to revoke it. Wait, just wait. You passed, you passed. Don't say that, or Stella will end up unemployed. Victoria was panicking, while Stella was in a state of shock. Unfortunately, we were looking for an experienced mid-career professional, not a beginner. We weren't recruiting inexperienced people. Moreover, our company's slogan is "You can be anything," a very positive message. We don't need people who demean others or judge their worth. Please don't say that. Let's talk. No, Victoria. Just now, you said you wanted nothing more to do with me, so Hilton and I will never pass through this house's gate again. This hit them harder. No! Not Hilton too! This was decided beforehand with Hilton. I'm sorry, but Hilton will have a separate family meeting with his father, so whether he keeps in touch with you too is your family's matter. I won't interfere, but I won't contact you again. Victoria slumped at this. Here's the final blow from me. Also, about compensating for the stained dress you mentioned earlier. It costs $7,000, so I'll be sending you the bill later. Victoria's eyes widened in shock. Victoria, I don't usually shop at such places. I mostly go to exclusive VIP lounges. Take care. Saying this, I confidently turned my back on them and started walking. Hilton was waiting outside the car. Tough day, thanks. I might have gone too far, but thanks for understanding. It's okay. Let's go eat something delicious. 6 months later, we had our wedding as planned. Only our dearest friends, who we truly wanted there, attended. Of course, Victoria and Stella weren't there. Father-in-law, looking a bit uneasy, was the only one from their family celebrating with us. Apparently, father-in-law had been fed up with Victoria and Stella's selfishness for a while, and this incident was the last straw. He started discussing divorce. Meanwhile, Stella, whose job offer was revoked, couldn't find employment and ended up working part-time at a convenience store, the very kind of place she used to scorn. We plan to teach our children when we have them. You can be anything. But only if you don't speak ill of others and work hard. There will always be people who act superior because of their family or status, but I'm sure our child will be just fine. That's what I thought, surrounded by friends' smiling faces under a clear sky at our wedding.